Welcome, everyone. We are happy to host another Ask Me Anything about EVP certification. I know that we still have some attendees joining the room. Welcome. My name is Penny Woolery, and I'm the manager of certification and membership for AACE International. And I will be one of your hosts this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Val Smith. Val, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Valerie Smith. I'm the Senior Credentialing Analyst for the Certification Department, and I will be the one helping you with your certification exam process. So I'll be the one who reviews all of your applications, sends you your clearance, and answers any questions that you have.
Thank you, Valerie. Just a point of housekeeping here. We have assembled our panelists here to answer all of your questions related to EVP certification. However, you're not able to speak to them. You'll ask your questions by utilizing the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Just look for the Q&A icon and type your questions in there. Between Valerie and myself, we'll monitor those questions and ask them on your behalf, and then the panelists will answer those questions live. So now I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the certification board, Charlie Bolyard. It's all yours.
Thank you, Penny. Appreciate that. Welcome to our live webinar featuring AACE's Professional Level Earned Value Professional, or EVP certification. We're very happy to have with us this evening members of the EVP committee of the certification board, and they will be the core of the panel answering your questions. We have the chair of the EVP committee, Joe Volbrick, and we have also with us committee member Bahadur Babrasoglu. And so between all of us, we will find the answers to your questions. And we do really welcome and encourage your interactive participation and discussion about this very popular certification. And with that, Penny, back to you.
So now is your time to think about your burning questions related to EVP certification. Use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And no question is going to be too hard. We're going to challenge our EVP team to answer some of these questions, or it won't be too silly to ask any question that you have on your mind, whether it's procedural or exam specific, how to study, anything that you have related to EVP certification that you want to know before you sign up to take the exam, or perhaps you already have. Get into that chat box and ask the questions. And while we're waiting, I don't see any in there yet. And while we're waiting, I think maybe I'll ask a question. So we'll start with you, Joe. How did you get into the realm of wanting to be EVP certified?
That is a hard question. No, that's an easy one. I was actually looking for a job about 15 years ago, and I came across in one of the ads for the jobs that said they were looking for somebody EVP certified, and I'd done earned value management for probably 10 years, and I never heard of the credentials. So I checked into it, and the more I looked into it, the more I wanted to become certified. I'm kind of a, I don't collect certifications, but this just seemed like one that was not only value added as far as looking for employment, but professionally, I took a lot of pride in attaining it. And so I even challenged myself too. And it's not a really difficult test, especially if you're a practitioner. And once you get it, you don't want to give it up. So I think there's maybe 430 some of us out there right now. So you're kind of an exclusive group, and I took a lot of pride in that as well.
So to your point, Joe, about not wanting to give it up, and this, I'm sure that Val Smith can chime in on this, but if I take the exam and I'm successful, how do I best not give it up? Do I have to recertify or take the exam again, or what? How does that work?
Well, the certification is only valid for 3 years, after which you need to recertify, and you can do that either by recertification by CEUs, where you earn enough credits to recertify, or you can recertify by exam. Most people take the route to recertify by CEUs. One, people don't want to take the exam again. Two, it's more cost effective to recertify by CEUs. And three, you're already doing things in the industry and it's kind of your way to give back. So for recertification by CEU, you need to have 12 CEUs per 3-year period to recertify. Half of that, 6 of that, if you're still working in the industry, is already covered. So you get 2 CEUs per year if you're still working in the industry, which means that you only have to earn 6 CEUs in that 3-year period. So it's definitely the most popular route to go. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sounds good. So, Baheder, how did you get into the realm of EVP certification?
Sure. So I was a scheduler on a mega project, on a data center project, and you know, we collected lots of scheduled progress data, and at the end of each month, that scheduled progress data were compared against the cost data, and I was like, this is not the best way to do it. There's earned value management who can integrate schedule and cost data together. But back then I was just a scheduler, so what I said was not that credible. So I decided to pursue, you know, EVP certification so I can, you know, strengthen my position. So what I say about earned value management is better heard. So I finally pursued the EVP exam. And when I searched for the earned value management, the most reputable certification was by AACE. So I got the certification and, you know, put together a framework based on the recommended practices. And you know, everybody was on board. We applied it, and even, you know, some of my coworkers, they became interested in pursuing the certification too. So yeah, mine was mainly we needed it in the project, and I, you know, took the action to become an EVP certified professional.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Val.
I was going to say, we do have a question. I think there might be a little confusion about it, so I'm going to ask it. And I wanted to point out that in the chat, I put links for recertification by CEUs, recertification by exam, and then the exam details. The question is, where can we find the CEU courses? So I think that if I'm understanding it, and please ask if we're not getting the answer right or we're not interpreting the question the right way. But there are no CEU courses that are required to sit for our exams. The CEUs that we're talking about is once you have earned your earned value professional certification, then in order to continue that every 3 years, you would need to take the, you need to earn CEUs for that. You can do that in a myriad of ways. The link has really good resources to tell you ways to earn CEUs, whether it's volunteering or it's, you know, presenting papers or writing papers or being published. I mean, there's definitely a myriad of ways to earn CEUs. Does anybody else want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that you know, take a look at the details of the opportunities to earn CEUs. And this is a little bit piling on to Val's point, but you can get it through, you know, volunteering and participating in AACE activities. You can earn CEUs for participating in other professional associations. You can, as Val mentioned very early on, you can achieve CEUs by continuing to work in the earned value component of industry, you know, just by doing your job on a day-to-day basis. And so there's a very detailed listing of the categories and the activities and the points that are achievable in the recertification program. And when you think about it being spread over 3 years, participating in some association meetings like the AACE Annual Conference and Expo, or local section technical meetings, or, you know, the Houston Gulf Coast or Region 5 Symposium, or the Region 2 Northeast Symposium, attending or presenting papers and things of that nature are ways to build up your CEUs.
You know, they're not real difficult to attain either. I mean, you have to get 12, but like Val said, 6 of them are almost automatic if you work in the industry. And then if you can always take training courses, and if you're PMP certified or certified maybe through another organization, and you have to take courses or something like that, you can use the same ones for this. I mean, just because you use them for that doesn't cancel them out, you know, from you being able to use them for this. And then the other thing you can do is submit questions or scenarios type questions to AACE that we would include in the exam. You get credit for that kind of stuff. So the last thing I want to point out is AACE has a tracking mechanism for you to keep track of all this stuff automatically. And if you wait until, you know, like the month before you need to come up with those other 6 cert points, then yeah, it seems kind of hard. But if you just keep at it, you know, right away, you know, once you get your certification, start thinking about how you want to keep it 3 years later. It's not difficult at all.
So the next question is, how do we provide proof of whatever we have done? In the chat, I put a link to the CEU audit guide. That really is a great summary to and gives you details of what you would need to provide. When you are recertifying by CEU, you don't really, for most cases, you don't have to provide verification, but you should have your documentation ready in case you are audited. So, for example, like if you attend a section meeting, normally they'll give you can submit a copy of like the attendance sheet or something like that. If you do courses for CEUs, then like the certificate of completion should have the CEUs on there. If you volunteer as a grader, the grader coordinator can give you verification of all of the memos or papers that you've graded. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to provide that. And if you are audited and you have to provide verification of your employment, it would be the same as your initial application, where you would have to have your employer just verify your dates of service, your title, and brief description of your duties. And we currently don't have any other, I'm sorry, go ahead, Patty.
No, I was just ready to say the same thing. I don't see any other questions in there. So I'm gonna pull from the arsenal of all of the other sessions that we've had thus far, and we've been having these for about 3 years now. And I'm gonna ask especially for the professional level exams, the most frequently asked question about parts of the exam, and that is writing the memo. Is there any particular type of guidance that you would give to a candidate wanting to be EVP certified on how to best prepare to write the EVP memo?
I'll take that one since I'm also the grading coordinator for the EVP. Is that the first thing actually, if you go look at our source magazine, there's been articles written on how to take the EVP. Not just the EVP, but any of the memos. But I think the first thing that you need to do is just read, take time and read that, read the directions, because you're going to be asked a series of questions. And the one thing that I see most often where candidates don't provide a real adequate memo is they they don't really answer the questions, and it seems kind of trite, but once you do write your memo, go back and look at what you were being asked and just make sure that you address it, because these memos are, I mean, we look at partially at how well a writer you are, how you organize the memo. And so just before you go take the test, Google or somehow go look at a memo format, proper business writing, that kind of thing. And you want to, make sure you include all of those parts, like a proper introduction, a proper closure, and that kind of thing. Who it's to, from, dated, and everything like that. But there are also questions being asked, and you're being graded on your responses to those, and there are correct answers to that. So you can write a perfectly organized, structurally correct memo, but if you don't answer the questions, or if you answer them incorrectly, then you won't have quite the outcome that you're hoping for. So I think that's my input, is just make sure you read the directions and follow those, and then go back and make sure that you answered each of those questions. And I don't think you'll have a problem. These are not difficult memos to write. They address very common elements of earned value management. So if you study for the rest of the exam and you're feeling pretty good about how you address the multiple choice questions, things like that, you probably are doing pretty good on the memo as well.
So what I have showing up here on the screen while you were talking, Joe, is on our website, under the certification hub, it would be hovering on our website, hovering over certification and then offered, and go down to certification hub. We have this article, which was in source. You're right, Joe, when you talked about the online publication that we have. But this particular hub is a good guide for a lot of our candidates and certificates for how to find things. The top of this hub, actually, the heading, these are things that are, all of these areas at the top here are applicable to all exams. But then we have them broken down specifically by level. And for what I just was showing on the screen here, how to write the memo, which is memo writing guidance, would be at this link right here under each of the exams specific. And this is, we used to have guidance on there that was good as well, and we've recently revamped it. So this is very current and it's more detailed to help. And that was really born out of some of the Ask Me Anything sessions that we've had in the years past, to really refine the guidance to give you just more comfort level in writing the memo for the various exams that require a real-time writing exercise during the exam. So I just wanted to demonstrate that for all of you on the call here, so that you understand where to find these things. The same thing on our website. There's a lot of detail for EVP certification on its own page, from eligibility requirements all the way down to some of the things we've already talked about with recertification and maintenance. And I'm just going to leave that up. I see that we do have a question in there, but I'm going to leave that up so that we can refer to that if we need to.
Okay, let me ask the question then. Any suggestions on exam preparation for someone who has a busy schedule and doesn't have much time to study? Is there any learning material for EVP to cover all EVM knowledge areas similar to Rita McCaughey's PMP exam prep?
And sure, I'll take that. In fact, I get asked this all the time, and we were actually talking about this before we came on the air with you today. But there's recommended practices that AACE has out on their website, and one's 81R 13, and then there's 82R 13, and they have They have a list of, I mean, they give training on earned value management, but they also have a list of questions. And then let me back up just a little bit. The questions on the exam are pulled from, I think, 6 different sources. And those two RPs I just talked about are 2 of the sources. There's a skills and knowledge of cost engineering. There's a general skills, a knowledge book. And then there's an EVP certification guide that's out on the AACE website. And it's pretty comprehensive. Again, it's training, but it has questions that you kind of like practice questions as you go through. And if you stick with those, you're in pretty good shape. The one source that I used most though was Humphrey's book on project management using earned value. And the Humphreys and Associates team has put out, I think, 4 editions of this. It's also called the Big Blue Book. But as you go through that, he's at the end of each chapter, there are practice questions there as well. I think that's the only thing I actually looked at. Again, I'd practiced earned value management for 10 years as well. So I didn't, I almost hate to lead you down the wrong path. I didn't study a lot for the test, and I felt very comfortable taking it. So if you're a practitioner and you've been doing this for a while, I'm not telling you don't study. I'm just telling you, don't feel overwhelmed that this test can't be passed. If you do this for a living, you're going to pass this test. Hopefully that helps.
I'm sorry, I'm typing a response.
So
And
while,
I don't know if anybody can see those or not, but I did respond to this second question directly to that person because it had to do with their application.
okay. So while Val's typing and doing a great job of answering that question, one of the other frequent questions that we get about EVP or the other exams is, what can I expect in terms of the questions or the categories or domains? And that's another thing that is prominent on the website, and in particular in what Penny has on the screen now, because there is in the center of this the exam structure, and it tells you the domains and general ranges of questions, and then the communication, which is the memo exercise. So all those things are very helpful in getting you started on the right path to preparing. And then the study guide, which is under the recommended study materials on the left-hand side, along with the recommended practices. And there are even some professional practice guides that are also available on the website that would be good sources of information.
I'd like to add to the way the test is structured, because a lot of people get kind of tied up with the memo and get worried about, how long is it going to take and that kind of thing. But what we usually ask for is like it should really be no more than 1 page of a written response. You'll type it in just like you would on your computer. You're being asked to answer a question in a memo format. That you're typing it out almost like an email, but again, we just ask for a memo format. But that question, the memo question will pop up randomly. I think it's randomly through, somewhere throughout the test. And so what you can do if you're not ready to answer the memo, or if you'd like to take the rest of the test and then save the memo towards the end, there's a way to park it. And I'll let Val talk a little bit about the mechanism on how to park things and go back and check things and that kind of stuff. But I would say and I've taken this test as a practice just to make sure that just some of the memos that we created, weren't overwhelming and took too much time. But I would say 20 minutes, to 20 to 30 minutes to write a 1-page memo. It should be sufficient. So as you go through the test, time yourself, keep track of your time and stuff. And if you leave the memo till the end of the test, just try to leave yourself 20 or 30 minutes, and I think it'd be fine.
So I just wanted to clarify something that you said, Joe. The exam, the way it's structured, when Charlie was talking about these domains here, here's how they deploy and how they will display to you. The very first section of the exam is planning, and there are 47 questions. The 48th question is your memo. That's what's going to show up second. And then after that, you'll have the third area, which is earned value applications for 22 questions. And the fourth is monitoring control for 50 questions. When Joe was talking about being able to park it, you do have the ability to do that. So even if you wanted to just go through all of the questions, the multiple choice questions, even those that refer to a scenario, you could, once that 48th question pops up, you can click a button that says, I want to mark this to come back to it later. And then you can just continue advancing to the exam. You'll get to the end of the exam and there's a summary. You can submit or go back, or you can click summary. And then what happens is a screen will display, and anywhere that there's a question, you'll have 120 questions where there's an asterisk, that was the one that you marked to go back to check it. So you just need to look for those, click that, it'll take you right to that question. But I want to show you on our website, we have a video that actually will show you how to do that. So at the certification hub that we talked about before, there is a link at the top for applicable to all examinations, certification application tutorials. At the bottom of that page, if you click it, the computer-based testing tutorial is at the bottom, and it will show you, it's a fake exam. It's actually an exam for the story of Snow White, but it's just to demonstrate to you what you can expect the screen to look like. There's a split screen technology, how you select a scenario that you're required to do on some questions, and actually what the text box, the rich text box looks like when you're typing in your response to the memo. So it's a really good overview. It's not very long, but it is a great way for you to understand how to navigate in the exam. So you might want to check that out too.
That's great. I was going to defer to you anyway, because you give a really good explanation of that.
And when we talk about scenario-based questions too, sometimes there's calculations in there, but don't get overwhelmed there either. It's just going to be simple third grade math. So you'll never be asked to do anything more than add, subtract, multiply, or divide. And so those, when you look at some of it, you'll be given a scenario and there might be 6 questions that go along, with that particular scenario. Those are good ones to part to if you want to just get through your multiple choice and then just kind of sit down and try to work out some of the longer questions towards the end. That's kind of my method, but it worked for me, but you might want to do it differently.
And for those who are mathematically challenged like myself, you may have a standalone battery operated calculator in the exam with you. It just cannot be an app on a smartphone or a tablet or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question, and I'm going to take it in parts. So the question is, can you apply for the exam eligibility for EVP and other certifications at the same time? And what time do you have to pay for it with the same application? Okay, so that question was 2 parts, but let me start by saying, short answer, you may apply for more than one exam at a time. We cap it at 2 exams that you can be registered for at the same time because of what all is involved in taking an exam and passing the exam, and also the length of time that you're allowed to do that. So let me go back and explain the process a little bit. So what we do is we recommend for you to study before you register for an exam, and just be prepared. Get your application ready, and then make your payment. I'll review the application within a business day or two, and then I will send you your clearance. So from the day that I send you your clearance, you have 6 months in which to take your exam up to 3 times, and 2 of those are at a reduced fee. So we do suggest that you schedule your exam pretty soon after you receive your clearance so that you have time within your registration period to take it over if you need to. We do have grading cycles that are every month, and they run on or about the 15th. So you have to kind of keep that in mind whenever you're scheduling your exam, because when the memos are all distributed for grading at the grading cycle mid-month, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to receive your result back. So you have to factor that time into whether or not, if you don't pass, then will I have time in the registration period to take my exam again? So that's one part of it. The second part is, and that's also why we max it at 2. Can you apply for multiple exams at the same time with the same application? So what I'm thinking you're saying is, can I go ahead and open up the exam applications and upload my documentation for multiple exams and just have it there? You can do that, that's fine. But one nice thing about our system is if you pass a certification exam, a professional certification exam, then once you pass and you want to say sit for the PSP exam, you don't have to upload any more documentation. So it'll just take you to where you check a box saying that you're going to adhere to the canons of ethics, and then you can check out and pay. And then at what time do you have to pay for it? So when you're ready to take your exam, you must make your payment. We don't necessarily do a pre-review of verification documents, but I will if you have a specific question about something, because the exam fee does also pay for all the administrative costs as well. That includes reviewing your application, all your exam fees and everything. So I don't see your application if it is in pending status. I will only see your application once it goes to status review. If you have a question, you can contact me or Sarah at headquarters, and we'll review your application documentation so you have a better feeling about whether or not you qualify for the exam. And I hope that answers all the questions. And we currently don't have any in the queue.
So I'm gonna throw something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We do have questions, but go ahead, Joe.
I just want to point out one thing too, like when you start looking at multiple certifications, one of the things it kind of got me was I wanted to sit the PSP exam. I just didn't want to do it right away. And then I joined the certification board. And then as soon as I joined, and by the way, that's one of the volunteer opportunities you'll have out there. So keep that in mind. I'll be really positive and say, once you've got your certification, you know, some of these volunteer opportunities, and I know they're out on the website, but I didn't realize I could be on the cert board. I didn't realize that I could be a memo grader. And so if that's the kind of thing that you like to do and earn CEUs that way, you know, as soon as you get your certification, reach out to Val or Sarah or Penny, and they'll send you over to me, and we'll get you signed up as at least a memo grader. And then, you know, from that point, it could open up a position on the certification board. However, once you're on the certification board, you're not eligible to take another exam just because you've got kind of, I guess, inside information on some of the other type of things that are going on. So keep that in mind. If you want to get another certification, then take it before you sign up for any of the boards, and not be like me. And that's it.
The next question is, what if you fail? Can you retake your exam? And the answer is yes. You have 2 times, you can resit for your exam within the 6-month registration period, where you only have to pay $250. If you take it outside of that 6-month period, or if you use up all of your attempts, then you have to start a new registration period and pay full exam fees. And the next question is, and I'm glad you asked this because I should have given that caveat, but I was doing a whole lot of talking. So if you pass the EVP and then you take PSP or CCP, for example, without full application, can we just register for the exam? So you don't have to upload your verification documents for any of the professional level certification exams. The CCP is a little different though, because it does require technical paper as part of the requirement. You cannot get to checkout and pay until you have uploaded that technical paper. So that comes on the front end of your application. So you will have to upload that. You won't have to upload your verification documents. And the queue is empty again.
And there's crickets. How about you, Charlie? What do you think is one of the most important things that candidates should know about EVP certification or certification in general, I guess, is this whole process?
Yeah, thank you, Penny. So there are different levels or different facets to what it means. To an individual, it means, okay, I'm committed to improving my professional credentials and continuing my learning and training and demonstrating to my employer that I'm, seeking this professional recognition. And so then that brings another level of opportunity, because many employers are out seeking projects or seeking to be hired to work for a client. And the client may require that people on a particular project or particular assignment have the EVP. So if you have it, then you also enhance your employer's opportunity to present your credentials and be qualified for and win the work. And as Joe remarked earlier, I'm just going to call it 430 plus or minus globally. It's a highly sought after certification, and to have that recognition of whether you travel from one country to another, work with different agencies or different governments, the fact that you have the EVP certification and it's universally recognized is a big benefit.
Thank you, Charlie.
We do have another question. Which certification is the most difficult based on fail rate between CCP, EVP, PSP, and PRMP? And which one is the most popular? Penny, I'm going to toss that over to you.
Thanks for that, Val. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm just trying to remember. I wasn't prepared with any stats, which I do have. The most difficult based on fail rate. And that's kind of hard to equate as being difficult based on the fail rate, because you've got the variables of the readiness of the candidate, level of experience, is it just the 8 years minimum that we require? Do they have a lot more? And also other factors as far as, how they took the exam, did they have any disruptions and things like that. So fail rate actually can take in a lot of other factors that aren't really just related to the difficulty of the exam. So the one that is the most popular still to this day is the very first certification, which is CCP. Neck and neck to that, it's kind of like a contest between the two. Next in line would be PSP. Those seem to be the two most popular, at least for the last 5 years running. The RMP has is our newest, and it's kind of making its way there. EVP, as Joe had alluded to, and Charlie did as well, it's been around a while, and there still is, a little under 500 worldwide. So we probably have room to grow there, but I think there might be some myths about EVP certification, whether it's like if you work for a government or you work on government contracts only. I think there's a thought out there that that's really what it's for. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. And I'm going to park that part of the conversation. I'll let Joe kind of expand upon that. But I want to get back to the most difficult. I don't want to say one is more difficult over the others for reasons I already stated based on fail rate alone. I think that we have had a number of people for each exam be very shocked that they failed it the first time because they had lots of experience. They felt they studied enough and they still failed the exam. So I don't know that I could categorize that the exam was difficult, because what were some of the reasons that resulted in getting that failed result? I just will say this: it is not uncommon, and I think Val would be able to back me up on this. It is not uncommon for candidates, even if you have a lot of experience, even if you really think you know the material very well and you've studied, it is not uncommon to fail the exam the first time. I'm not saying that it happens to everyone. It seems to be, just, I don't want to say random, but there are people who pass it and say, I didn't even study. And then there are people who say, I studied like for hours and hours and hours, and I still failed it. But I will say that a lot of the feedback that you will get, because all of these exams have a written component to it, other than the technical level certifications, some of the feedback that you're going to get from the exam will help you in resetting. Plus the fact that you've already had exposure to what you can expect on the exam. So if I could, and I have test anxiety, so I would probably go into that being very nervous and just second guessing myself. And I took an exam for my particular industry for credentialing, and felt like I wasn't prepared enough, but I did end up passing the exam. But it really just depends on the individual. And I just want to encourage you to do the very best that you can, but don't beat yourself up if you happen to take the exam and you fail it the first time. It is a common thing for a variety of backgrounds of people. And that's why when Val was talking about when you're cleared, take your exam, schedule that exam almost immediately after being cleared, because that gives you the opportunity to at least resit for the exam for a reduced fee. And even though that next exam is not going to be a complete replica of the exam that you just took, because they're all randomized, and the system can keep track of which test form you had the last time and will not give you that same test form. But if you do find that you're the person that failed the exam the first time, I think the feedback that you're going to get and already being exposed to the exam might ease your nerves, or make you feel more confident about going into it for the resit. And we're just going to cross our fingers that if you take the exam, you're in the camp that passes the exam the first time. And I hope that that was a satisfactory answer to that question.
I wanted to give Joe a moment to address the myth before I go on to another question.
Thank you. I forgot about that. Joe, do you have anything that you could add to that? Because it is a big myth in the world of EVP certification.
Yeah, thank you. Because I've been putting out that if you study and if you're prepared, and if you go out to the website and look through, like the testing environment, like what to expect before you ever get there, and feel comfortable taking the test, you're in a pretty good place. And the fact that you've called in to this webinar tells me that you're motivated enough that you'll take all those steps. So I'm a very positive person, and you know, and I'm a good test taker too. And I'm not bragging about that. I just, for some reason, I just do well on tests. So I don't get shook up about them. You know, I go into them feeling like I'm going to pass. So just do the same thing. The other thing is, this test is not, at least the EVP exam is not, you know, made for a government type worker, you know, like in the Department of Defense or Department of Energy that, you know, works with earned value management every day. This is, you know, these questions are not government or DOD or DOE specific. And so if you're in a construction industry or another type of industry that uses earned value management, it's those principles that you're getting tested on. So don't feel like, you know, you have to like study like the DOD way of doing earned value management. It's no different than the way that the construction management set up. You know, I want to say one other thing too. There was a really good article that a man named Ray Stratton put out about 2 years ago, and it compared the number of people with PMI's PMP to the number of people that had AACE's EVP credential. So you were looking at 1 million plus that had the PMP, and then you're looking at 400 and some that have the EVP. And when I used to work for the Defense Contract Management Agency, and I would go around, I'd validate contractors and their earned value management systems. And one of the things that we had to do, or one of the things my team had to do, was we had to interview control account managers and other project managers. And when I would go in there, the first thing I'd do is I'd ask those people, you know, like, give me a little bit of your background, just kind of an icebreaker. And every once in a while, one of them would say, well, I got my EVP like 2 years ago or something like that. As soon as I found out they had an EVP, then they had instant credibility. So that's another thing I wanted to kind of put out there, that if you're on the fence thinking, is this really worth it? You bring a lot of credibility to the table, because again, it's not the easiest exam out of all of them to pass. But if you're in this industry, and if you're a practitioner, if you take the time to just study those guides and just stick with those, you know, you don't have to go out and do anything else. Just stick with those 6 guides. You'll be fine. And I'm very confident you'll pass that exam on the first try. A lot of people do. So don't get intimidated that, you know, or start thinking about doing it over. Or don't be like me, you know, like I waited like the entire 6 months before I took mine, because I kind of just put it on the back burner. But also put studying on the back burner because that's just me, you know, until like 2 weeks before I took the exam. And then I just kind of went, well, heck, I'll just go take the exam. And it turned out just fine. So it'll turn out just fine for you as well. Hopefully that helps.
Don't follow Joe's path. Take your exam early. Okay, I have another question. It's a good one. Among all of the certifications, which one do you recommend to be taken first as a starting point for the PM and PC professional? In other words, is there a path you would suggest in taking various professional and expert level certifications, assuming the applicant has the experience?
So let me jump in on that one, if I may. So I think the way to look at it is that the CCP, CEP, and the BSP are the groundwork, the foundation that provide the skill sets that get used in the other certifications, like the EVP, like the PRMP, like the DRMP, or even the CFCC. So depending upon, what your career path has been, what your level of experience is, the basic approach would be to achieve CCP, PSP, CEP, and then use that as a stepping stone or springboard to move forward to the EVP, PRMP, some of the others, because for example, EVP or the PRMP, they rely on the different competencies and skill sets that come from CCP, CEP, and PSP.
That'd
And
be a
we
good
have
question.
a number of people across the association that have more than one certification. Some have as many as 5. Right.
This would be a good question for Bahadur to address too, because Bahadur's got several of our certifications. And what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I am certified EVP, CCP, and PSP. And let's say you are aiming to get all these 3 certifications. I would start with PSP and then go with CCP, and then I would take EVP, a little different than what Charles suggested. And the reason is that I think in the industry, you are surrounded with more people who are more experienced in the cost side than planning and scheduling side. So if you pursue PSP first, it's likely that you're going to realize the benefits earlier. And I would still put the EVP at the end, just because what Charles said, the PSP and CCP is going to create the foundation that you need for EVP. So I guess the order of PSP and CCP is a little bit, changeable depending on your perspective, but EVP should definitely, I mean, you are more likely to succeed in the exam if you take EVP at the end. Yeah, that's my opinion, subjective. Thank you.
Okay. The next question, if someone has multiple certifications, do you need to have 6 CEUs for each? And I can take this one. So the answer is no, but so for each certification, once you have earned that certification, that begins your 3-year, we call it an evaluation period on our end. But for that 3-year period is when you have to earn your 6 CEUs. Now, if you say earn your CCP January 1st of 2023, you have from January 1st, 2023 to January 1st, 2026 that you need to earn those 6 CEUs. But say you go and you take the EVP and you earn it April 1st of 2023. So the evaluation period for that is going to be April 1st, 2023 to April 21st, 2026. So any overlap in that time period in those 2 evaluation periods, where the dates where you're like, say you go to a conference and expo, which would fall under both of those, those CEs will apply to both certifications. It's a little complex. I hope I didn't make it more confusing. Penny, if you want to jump in, if I didn't really say that clearly.
Well, I think you said it fine and it's accurate. I just wanted, and I put in the chat. So when you say 6 CEUs, I want to be clear. You have to have 12 CEUs to recertify. And the best way to think about this, thinking about what Val just said, each certification stands alone. Okay, so if I am PSP certified and I'm EVP certified, if my PSP expires first, okay, thinking about what Val just said with the evaluation periods, I have to submit my CEU activity for my PSP certification. And if I reach 12 CEUs, 6 of them can be in category A, which is performed, and that is your continuing employment. That's the max, but you have to have 6 CEUs in the other 3 categories, because you have to have at least 2 categories to get CEUs, and it can't just be 1 category. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then submit it for that 12, and that can be approved so I can get another 3-year period. But let's say my EVP is doesn't expire until the next year. Some of those CEUs that I earned for my PSP, which is on record on my profile, as Val was explaining, will apply to the EVP. But you may be deficient because remember, there's a year difference between when you received those, that you will still need to have some CEUs to make up for the 12 CEUs that you weren't able to get because of the year difference. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of your evaluation periods because each certification stands alone. Not all of your CEUs are going to apply across the board evenly. So you want to make sure that you're always keeping up on your professional development or getting involved at the section level or volunteering. And it isn't only exclusive to AACE. We are pretty generous with giving you credit for, say, for instance, if you're working with another professional association like AACE and you're involved at some committee level there, you still are able to get some CEUs for that as well. So I hope I cleared that up as far as they stand alone, but some of your CEUs might be able to apply to 3 different certifications, even all the way to 5 certifications, if that
And
makes sense.
the best thing to do is once you earn a certification, open up your research application. And as soon as you earn your CEUs, put them in that application because this way you'll be able to better gauge. You're not waiting to the last minute to round up all your CEUs. It's just a better way to track it. And there are some things that that you earn CEUs for that are very tedious to enter, like grading papers or grading memos, and you have to kind of really keep track of that. So that's the best advice for that. And Penny, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, another question is, how detailed does the PSP certification get with scheduling, resource, cost loading, etc.?
Well, we had a session for that on Tuesday. And the video will be on our website soon, but I know that Charlie is PSP certified and I know that Bahadur is PSP certified. Since the question was asked, I think it's fair for us to attempt to answer that without getting in too much of the weeds, since this is really dedicated to EVP. But any one of you want to take a stab at that?
May we have the question again, please?
How much detail does the PSP certification get with scheduling, resource, and cost loading?
Well, the best way I know to answer that question is that within the realm of scheduling performance, cost loading is a component. It's not used on every project, but it is used widely. And so you can expect that there would be questions in the exam related to the application of cost loading.
I'd like to point out one thing too, like the EVP exam, even though like understanding scheduling is a component of earned value management, there's very little scheduling that you have to address with the EVP. That if you want to do scheduling, of course, you take the PSP exam, but don't go into the EVP exam thinking there's not any like scheduling type things that you need to know. But you don't have to know it to the degree that you would for the PSP exam. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So if you're comfortable with just the fundamentals of scheduling, you'll do fine on the EVP.
Bahadur, I saw that you had your hand up. Would you like to add more to that dialogue?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something about the PSP exam and the scheduling. So the candidates are expected to know how to draw a critical path diagram, a very simple one, activity on node or arrow diagram. And when it comes to resource and cost loading, they're expected to know how to translate the acceleration cost and impacts on schedule. But it is pretty straightforward, not complex critical path diagrams.
Hey, well, we are at 7 o'clock and I don't see any other questions in the Q&A box. And I want to be respectful of our panelists' time. Thank you so much for being generous to sit on this panel and answer all of these questions. We appreciate it. And thank you, attendees, for taking time out of your schedule to learn more about EVP certification. And in this case, some of our other certifications. We're so glad that you took time to be here with us and to give us the opportunity to answer your burning questions. So we're going to end the webinar, and we hope that we'll see your applications come across our desk soon. Val is just waiting to send you that clearance letter. And remember, if you have any questions after we leave this session, email us at certification@aacei.org, and we'll be sure to answer your questions timely. And we look forward to hearing from all of you. Good night. Have a great evening or day. I don't know what time zone you're in, but thank you so much. And we'll hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.